My name is Hayley Alphonse and I'm a drama teacher. I'm a real teacher in a real school with real students and 15 years teaching experience. And I really want to help you with your GCSE drama exam to take you from wherever you're at the moment to getting those amazing grade 9s. And trust me, it is achievable. You don't need to be in top set English. You just need to understand a little bit more about what the exam boards are looking for. So I wanted to talk you through some of the common mistakes that students make, how we can improve upon it, and how we can get those grade 9s in the summer and be really happy about it. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the exam in itself. So section A for AQA, we've got that lovely multiple choice, 4 questions, and it's really important. Don't just think, oh, it's 4 marks, it doesn't really matter. 4 marks can be the difference between a whole grade boundary. So, you know, it's worth revising theatre roles, stage configuration, you know, especially types of staging that comes up an awful lot. And, you know, what are the roles within the theatre? What does a producer do? What does a stage manager do? What does a director do, for example? So knowing those basics. Now, the whole point of the multiple choice of section A is to ease you into the exam. So even if, say for example, you're looking at your exam, there's a stage configuration on there. And what I mean by that is it a thrust stage? Is it end on? Is it in the round? If you're a little bit unsure, please don't leave it blank. Write your answer. And please, please, please write it in your answer booklet. I don't know whether you know this, but your question papers stay at the centre. So that means that when you complete your exam, the only thing going off to the exam board is your answer booklet. So please make sure that you write your answers for section A in your answer booklet. For section B, you've got your set text. And what this is really testing you is to see whether you can take your extract from your set text, from the play, from the page to the stage. Okay, so you're going to have to make sure that you've got a vision for this production before you go into your exam. You also need to make sure that you know your play. You know, we don't know what extract's going to come up. So it's really important that you're not sort of, you know, caught off guard with an extract that you haven't really looked over. Now, I am dyslexic. I find all these things very difficult, but there's ways around it. So if you are someone that struggles, you know, to read and retain information, then watch your production. And I would encourage all of you to do this. So if you can find, you know, maybe some sort of digital theatre on your set text, watch it. Now, with that, you can obviously be influenced by what you've seen. And there is nothing wrong with you liking the ideas of a production that you've watched. If you think that it's really good, if you think it's in keeping with the time period, you know, you would design it in a similar way, then yes, you can use that. But don't rely on it. You know, don't switch out somebody else's production for your creativity and your own ideas if you've got really strong ideas of how you want this performance, you know, this production to look, and, you know, what sort of style you would do it in. So with section B, one of the main things that you need to focus on, obviously, is your extract. When getting into that exam, read the extract first. Think to yourself, okay, whereabouts is it in the play? You will have a copy of your set text with you in your exam. So find it. Find the extract. I know it sounds really simple, but find the extract in your play. Now, the reason why this is important is because we need to make sure that we're understanding what has just happened, what is about to happen. It could be that it's very unlikely, but it could be that your extract spans 2 different locations or 2 different settings. So just make sure that you know where you're at. Especially with a text like Blood Brothers, for example, which spans 3 different decades, you really need to know, are Mickey and Eddie, are they still children at this point? Are they adults? What has happened in their relationship? So just get the placement. It's really key to get the placement. So read your extract, get it in your mind, envisage it. Imagine it, and really think about how it's going to look on stage. Then look at your questions. Okay, so on your questions, usually for AQA, we have a design question first. Now, this is a 4-mark question, so you don't want to be spending longer than 5 to 6 minutes on it in an ideal world. A lot of mistakes that students make is that they spend too long on the first question. What you will notice as well is the bit about context in that question. So it might be, describe your design ideas for setting, for example, making sure that they are in keeping with the context of the play and the time period and setting and location. For that question, it's asking you to show that context through your design. So you might be tempted, and you can write a little bit of a justification, you can do that, but don't spend too long on it because they're not necessarily marking you on that. So your examiner, when they're reading that question, they're imagining what you are saying. They're imagining your design. So a good revision tip might be that you write a description of a setting, you ask someone to read it, and then you ask that person to sketch what you have said. Are there bits missing? Now, this is really useful for costume. The amount of students that I've had do this task, and we find out that there are actors on stage without trousers, without shoes. So, what you write is what is meant to appear on stage. So if you've missed something out like shoes, you're not going to be getting those top marks. So make sure it is a complete design. For the next question is your 8-mark question. So this is usually where you get a one line, a quote from your extract, and you're asked how you would perform it using your vocal and physical skills. So if we think about the amount of marks that we're getting here, it's 8 marks. So ideally, we want to have at least 2 vocal skills, at least 2 physical skills. The other part of the question is about the effect that you want to create. And this is really important because a lot of the time students don't answer the whole question. I know that sounds really patronising, but you need to break the question down into two different chunks, really. So my students, we colour code this, and they're in the habit of doing that. So the first part of the question, they will highlight in a particular colour. In the second part of the question, that'll be another colour. So they'll do one colour first. So let's say, the description, if we call that blue stuff, and we write down, our description, the next bit of the question, the justification, I might call that red stuff. And then, so they've done 2 points for vocal skills, minimum of 2 points, minimum of 2 physical skills, and then they've justified the effect that they want to create. And the red stuff is important. Your justification is so important because that's what you're communicating to your audience. And theatre is made for audiences. So we want to really see, can you take the script from the page to the stage, and are you thinking about how that is going to come across to your audience. How do you want them to react? How do you want them to respond? Should they like this character? Will it reveal anything about the character's emotions? And just think about the effect of that line. The next part of the exam is your 12-mark question, and this is usually the shaded part of the extract. So you're not asked to comment or write about the whole of the extract, just that shaded part. And I would expect grade 9 students to cover the whole of that shaded part of the extract. Usually there will be other skills mixed in, so we're still thinking, we're building up from the previous question. So you're still including vocal skills, physical skills, but now we're probably bringing in the use of space to create a particular effect. So we're going to break it down in the same way really. Half the question, how would you direct the performer to play their character in this shaded part? Vocal skills, physical skills, description. Then we're thinking about how that is going to create the effect that's in the question. So say for example it was to build tension, you might talk about the characters moving closer together, you know, thinking about where they are on stage and how that therefore might build that tension throughout that shaded part of the extract. A tip that I'm going to give you, that I give my students, is with a space question, the first thing that you need to do is say where the characters are on stage. So plot it, because if you don't, then we forget about space, or we might say that they're over here, or they move downstage right. But where were they? Where did they begin? So the first thing you want to do is mention where they're situated on stage. And then from there, you can then, you know, communicate to your examiner where they are then moving around that stage space and how that is then feeding into that effect. For the next question, this is the big one, the 20-mark question. You have a choice between design or character interpretation. So for this question, the thing that people find tricky about it is that it's a 3-part question. So if you have a look at it, if you've got a copy of, you know, a mock paper, or, you know, go onto the website, you know, AQA or your exam board, and just have a little look at past papers, what you will see is a 3-part question. So the first part for character interpretation is all about the character, how you are as an actor or as a director, using your skills throughout the whole of the extract to show who this person is, how they are feeling at that particular time. That is your interpretation. Then you are asked to say what effect that is going to have at that particular point in time. And then you have to then put it into context of the whole play. So let's take Mickey from Blood Brothers, for example. He has just got out of prison. This is in Act 2. He's out of prison. He's asking Linda where his tablets are. You know, the tension is really high at this point in time. My character interpretation for Mickey, he's working class. He's suffering with severe mental health problems. And, you know, he's feeling really low and depressed. So then I can say how I would communicate that using my vocal and physical skills. Then I would give a specific example. So you need to quote your lines, and then work through the 3 steps before you move on to the next line. So take your line, say how you would do it using your vocal physical skills, what effect you want to create in that particular moment, and then how does it feed into the play as a whole. And with this, so Mickey hasn't always been depressed, you know, he hasn't always been this mean to Linda. So it might be that we tie it in with the rest of the play by saying, well, this would be a contrast to Mickey in Act 1. So you don't have to do what we call any text in action. You don't necessarily have to quote from anything other than the extract you've been given in your exam booklet, but you can talk about how the character was at different points. So this is a change, you know, in Mickey, think about the audience. How would they feel at this point in time? You know, this lovable little boy has now turned into, you know, the shell of the person that he used to be. And is this going to make us feel sympathy for him? Is it going to make us feel sympathetic towards Linda? So make sure you do all three parts of the question. Your description of your vocal physical skills, stage space, your justification, what is it going to show at this point in time? And then, does this show anything about the play as a whole, about this character? What's happened to them? Can we put in any historical context into there as well? So we're just bringing it all together. If you're doing your 20 marker as a costume designer, for example, it's really similar. We stick to the same structure. Talk through the elements of the design, the cut, the material, the colour, accessories, hair and makeup, the whole look. And then why is that appropriate for that part of the play in that particular scene? And then bring it into the play as a whole. So again, I'm going to go back to Blood Brothers. Let's think about Mrs. Johnstone. Act 1, you know, working class, she's on the poverty line, she can't afford to buy new clothes for herself, she's feeling 50 years old. So that design is going to reflect that part of the play. But what if your extract is for Act 2? She's not going to be wearing the same thing necessarily that she was in Act 1, because now she's moved. She's gone up in the world. She's not middle class all of a sudden, but she's got a bit more money. Her kids are grown up. So we can say, you know, in our justification of that particular moment, we can say about her moving house. We can say, then bring it into the context. We can say, actually, now we're making a contrast to Mrs. Johnstone in Act 1. So I really hope that this helps you. Please, in the comments, just let me know if there's anything else that you'd want me to talk through. I will be looking at other bits that I can bring you, but that's kind of it as a whole. That's still sort of only scratching the surface. So if you comment, let me know what you'd like more information on, or what you'd like me to go into a bit more detail about. But before we go, I want you to repeat something after me. PPTV. Did you do it? Did you repeat it? Okay, we'll try again. PPTV. Pace, pitch, tone, volume. So when we're talking about vocal skills, I know that my students really struggle to remember all of the different aspects that you've got to mention. But if you think PPTV, pace, pitch, tone, volume, obviously then you can add in things like operative word, you can add in things like accent, for example. But if you get those basics down, that's half the battle. So I wish you all the best of luck, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you want more of in the comments. So happy revising.